Friendship supreme. Friendship supreme. Finding the geek within.
Hey everybody, my name's Michael.
It's Cleve.
Welcome back to an episode of Friendship
Supreme.
Podcast that dares to ask. Has someone that you've looked up to let you down before?
You always hope they die first, don't you? You always hope they die before they let you down.
That's the saying, right? You die a hero or you lived long enough to become a villain.
Or, you've been the villain the whole fucking time.
The whole time.
We've been talking Black TV for the month of February, and we're ending on the heaviest note that we could, which is
The Cosby Show.
Cosby. I hate saying his name sometimes.
Okay, so we watched a specific episode. And we're gonna we watched two episodes.
Two
We're
episodes.
gonna talk about
Just
that in a second.
Random.
But I want to preface this in the beginning. I never watched Cosby. Like, I watched a plethora of shows, but growing up, it was never like my household's thing to watch family sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I can remember, other than I remember watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with my brother, and it's simply because we loved Will Smith when we were kids.
Right. Understandably.
Was Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I think it's the only one as a family where I'm like, let's watch this together. Aside from that, family sitcoms were not really our jam.
Okay.
It was always like game shows and stuff. So like this was not one that I watched. Did you watch it growing up?
I did. In fact, so I asked a bunch of people like, "Hey, what's TV that you remember?" And I did, and my cousin is like, I distinctly remember my mom letting me stay up late on Thursday nights just specifically to watch this show because it was about a well-together Black family taking care of each other, loving each other, learning lessons. As Cosby had begun to be known for, which was like fucking teaching kids and building generations and looking out for his people and all the first level stuff that you saw.
And so, we're gonna get into it because we've gotten into this before, the concept of this a couple of times.
Mm.
When a person, specifically a creator of some kind of art media form, creates something and gives the world something, and we get something out of it, and then they end up doing something heinous or something is unearthed. Like, does it lose its impact that it had? Is the water tainted at that point? Is the water poisoned?
Right. Because there's no doubt from the Cosby Show to his comedy albums to Fat Albert to A Different World, which was a spinoff of the Cosby Show, like he affected America. He was known as America's dad for quite some time. And it's impossible to be like, it's so weird because on one hand, if he great and then did something terrible at the end, like, oh man, I can't believe he did that. But when you know that since the moment he became a star,
it had been happening
the entire time he's been a terrible piece of shit. It makes it.
You wish
so
you would have
weird.
seen through the mask. You know,
Right.
you feel like you were bamboozled the whole time. that you were
Which is
looking up to
why
someone.
I picked one specific episode. Yes,
Yeah.
continue.
Well, and why? Yeah, it's that you feel like this whole time here's someone, and we've talked about this many times before about how strong male father figures are huge and important, especially in households that don't have that. And so this is what they get, and this is what they can pull from. And he was a prominent doctor. He was taking care of his family. He loved his wife. He loved his kids. Like, he was there and did everything that a family person should do. And so because of that, he was a role model in that role. And so I don't I don't think it takes away from the impact that it had. But I think it takes away from the impact it could have had. I think the people that it inspired or it raised can benefit from that, but the conversation stops there. We no longer use that as an example. We can't use that as like, hey, I learned this from this, or let me show my kids what I grew up with. Because there's parts of that we enjoy. I show my kid old cartoons that we grew up on. She loves Sonic and the Super Mario Brothers show. Like, things that we grew up on, we like to bond with our kids about. That doesn't get to be one anymore. And it could have been when it had such a good message and a good experience.
And I think the length that it ran, and like just the message that it showed, for you to be such a great entertainer, this is what I'll refer to him as, because he was a great entertainer, shitty human being. I mean, and there are plenty of people like that. There are plenty of people that's crossed a line, and I think you have to find that line in yourself also. Like,
and it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever be able to enjoy any of his work. Yeah. And it's because I'll know that the entire run of this show, he was bringing models into his office and shutting the door. And like, how are you ever supposed to look at this and not think of that? Any R. Kelly sex song to me is like the worst thing that it can hit my ears, because and I say that preface because there's songs like "I Believe I Can Fly," where it's like, okay, this is just a song that's being sung. But then there's any one of those songs where you're like, where does he get this inspiration from? What is he talking about? You start trying to look at and dissect everything, and I don't want to be bothered with that. Not that I don't want to be bothered with that, but I don't want to give... It's not a line you're willing to go. Well, yeah, I don't want to give him anything.
Right.
And so I cut it there.
Well, I think that's, not that that's what this episode's about, but it can be, I guess, a little bit. But I think we see that a lot. And right now we're seeing it with J.K. Rowling a lot, where, like, she has, here's something that a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community have really found a safe haven in within the Harry Potter world. And then she came out and wrote a whole manifesto about, like, how she truly feels about them. And it's, so what line are you crossing and all that? There's all kinds of things going on because of the new game that came out. And and everybody has their own line, right? I think that's
right.
We talk about Chick-fil-A. I don't not go to Chick-fil-A because, well, partly that is part of it, but also because it's fucking terrible. But, like, there are lines that people are willing to cross and not willing to cross in battles that they're wanting to fight and battles they don't want to fight. And unfortunately, when you have 55 plus, counts of sexual assault and rape, that's no line that I think anybody wants to really cross.
And it doesn't take away from, like, the cast,
Yeah.
such a good, strong cast that wrapped in
Well, I don't remember. Was
this.
he a part of the writing team, or is he just an
I
actor?
I think he had so
He
if I remember
had. Sorry, you
correctly.
cut out right there.
I think he had control over that whole show,
Oh, okay.
if I remember correctly.
Guess that would make sense because it's called the Cosby Show.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing that flew that he wasn't a part of.
If that's the case, then the episode that Cleve made me watch is real weird. It was almost like a confession, almost like a O.J. Simpson level confession. When he wrote the
Well,
book, that was like, I didn't do it, but if I did, this is how I would have.
so tell us about the episode.
So the episode that we watched, the first episode we watched, was an episode discussing. It starts out with one of his daughters. Her husband is in the military, it seems like,
Mhm.
and he never had a bachelor party. The other two guys in the air with around him said you need to have. It's one of his sons and then one of the son-in-laws, I believe.
Mhm.
And so basically, hey, we want to throw a bachelor party for you. Theo's like, we're gonna get you a stripper, and it spirals, right? His wife is not happy about that.
Typical storyline.
Lots of shit going down. And meanwhile, Bill is having a barbecue. He's cooking because it's what he does. He's good at it. He said, no matter what the weather is, he's basically the postman. He can barbecue. And during this whole time he's barbecuing, he keeps talking about his special sauce. His other son-in-law is trying to figure out what the special sauce is by tasting it every once in a while. And then he comes out to finish it all up, and he walks out with a different pot of sauce in his hand. And she's like, what is that? And he goes, this is my actual sauce. That's just decoy sauce. And they're all fighting. And then it escalates, and it gets really, really... Yeah, like you would at Thanksgiving dinner when someone says something real inappropriate, and you're like, well, we're going in on this.
It goes from like a small disagreement, much like anyone who's in a relationship knows. It goes from that small agreement to just you can't put the fire out. Next thing you know, the whole house is burning.
Yeah, 100%. And suddenly, then they all start getting along again. They all just start kind of becoming kissy, smooshy, smoochies.
Mm-hmm.
And Cosby's wife says, oh man, they're all getting back together and all loving each other. And, it's a good thing we're family, and that's what's bringing us all back together. And he's like, nah, it's my barbecue sauce. And she's like, haha, yeah, like your food is good. No, I put an extra ingredient in my barbecue sauce. Why do you think everybody always feels so randy at the end of eating my barbecue? Why do you think they all want to go home immediately after they're done?
Put some barbecue sauce upstairs.
He did. He said, I have a little jar of it upstairs. And then got his wife to go upstairs with him. We literally had an episode where Bill Cosby is putting something in his barbecue sauce to get everybody's inhibitions let loose.
Hmm.
I don't know how, and the problem is we've done this before, right? We've done this before where we've looked at older things and said this would not pass now, because, and I think it's because all this stuff comes out. I think it's because we find out the Cosbys of the world existed in droves, and now we're like, we can't make these jokes. So it's hard for us now to look back and be like, how did this pass? But like, god damn, it's hard to be like, how is this passing?
Well, especially because, so I watched the whole documentary on it and everything. With everything going on, how someone didn't know something, or see something, or notice something.
And maybe they did. Think about Brendan Fraser. I think Brendan Fraser's a really good example in this, is that like he kept saying, hey, something's going on. nobody would do anything. And finally, he just came out and was like, "This is what's happened to me personally." And they were like, "Blacklisted. We don't want to talk to you anymore."
Yeah.
And they cut him out. That was show business. Look at the Dan Schneiders of the world and the God, Dan Schneider. What a piece of fucking garbage. I don't know if you know any of the stories behind him, but he's the guy
I
that
don't
did
think I
like
do.
iCarly, any like the Nickelodeon shows,
Oh,
Victorious.
yes. Yes.
Fucking anyway. Um, set me into a rage just now. I mean, they're
I
children
get
for
it.
fuck's sake. God damn it.
I get it.
But
I
the
and I
Weinsteins and the just the, like there's that was Hollywood, and like I remember Drew Barrymore did a interview when she was 14, 15 years old, and she was like, my parents don't let me go to those parties, the Hollywood parties that she would be invited to. She's like, because they know what would happen. Like, and that was just a knowledge that we were like, that's just how those Hollywood folk are.
yeah, you know them. Same old, same old. Boys will be boys, as they like to say.
And so it makes it tough because our generation is now faced with a lot of, I say heroes, but idols, people we looked up to. We're now the generation that is watching all of those people crumble because this is the era of that stuff being not stopped, but a light being shined on it all.
Hmm.
And
People are
so,
paying attention
right. And so, like,
and
I
holding
don't,
people accountable.
and it's tough because it's like, you know, was that all we had growing up? Was all these creepy feet people? I said people. These creepy feet people.
People's a short way to say it. I
Uh,
accept. I
uh,
accept people.
like it's just I don't know. Anyway, so it's tough because watching that episode and knowing what ended up happening and knowing what was going on. Cleve watched a 4-hour documentary on this shit. I watched 2 episodes and then an episode about in another show talking about this whole incident, and that's fuck man. The second episode we watched.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you? I'm sorry. Did you have something else to add to that one?
Oh, well, you said like he kind of told on himself. It's also funny that he used to have a joke in his stand-up that he told all the way until like I think 1991 was the last time he told this joke about Spanish fly, and it was something that you put in a girl's drinks that just super turned her on, like an aphrodisiac, you know. And he was on like what talk show was he on? He was like a nighttime talk show, and he's like, you just put like the tip of a pin amount in the drink, and you know the girls start going. Meanwhile, this is to promote his book Fatherhood, that he's talking about this Spanish fly drink, and like it's on albums, jokes that he's done, and it's like, okay, beep 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 beep, maybe something's going on that people need to pay attention to, or the people who can pay attention to it don't care. And I can't imagine an entire world loving somebody who did something to me, and me like, am I supposed to tell you the dad of America took advantage of me, and you would like, I mean, who believes you
Right.
until 55 plus women step up and go, happened to me.
Well, and we saw that during the big push of the Me Too movement when like people would come out about something and everybody would be like, "Nah, that didn't really happen." Like, here are victims saying, "Hey, this happened to me,"
Yep.
and then just being told, "No, it didn't."
But it's so scary too because there are a lot of the women were white. There was like a third of them that were not, but a lot of the women were white. And how many times has a white woman said something about a black man that wasn't true, and then something terrible happened?
Very, very.
And I think that helped skew the vision of it for people. I don't know, but I guess this guy was out here doing what we thought was good,
Well, you look at him and he
and
looks like an Urkel looking. I mean, he looks just like a
yeah,
wholesome, very.
and America knew him. You know
Yeah.
this guy. You don't know these women, and it's hard for you to imagine he would do it when you know him. You know him, but you don't know them.
Right.
And
Well, and that's the issue behind idolizing.
oof,
Like,
right,
you think about like the people that idolize. Oh, this is gonna really make Cleve happy. The people that idolize the Paul family, and like just how garbage some of the things they've done, and it won't ever
no
matter.
repercussions.
They couldn't possibly be that bad. No way.
I think sometimes I'm like, I wonder if I could just talk to them. Like, could I have a conversation with one of them? And I'm like, boy, I highly doubt it. I highly doubt that I would have a conversation, walk away, and go, "Well, it's a good talk I had with Logan Paul, Jakey Paul." Remember they had a video where like they blindfolded girls and they would kiss them, and then the dad would kiss them, and the girls would try to guess who. Just this episode's about Bill Cosby. What was the second episode about, Michael?
The second episode was what would happen if Bill Cosby went to hell, but it was run by Muppets? And all I could think of was, I really hope that's what ends up happening for him. The actual
Dragged away by the.
yeah. Wow, God, what's that guy's name? That big Muppet. I can't remember his name. It's essentially his wife's like, hey, you shouldn't eat that sausage sandwich. And let me tell you, Chicago sausage sandwiches, because that's gotta be where they're from, because based on nobody else eats sausage sandwiches. But
That sounds right.
I get it. I fucking love sausage sandwiches in Chicago. But that being said, his wife's like, you shouldn't do that. It's gonna give you bad nightmares because it gave you nightmares last time. And he's like, fuck you, I know what I'm doing. And he ate it anyway. And then he had a nightmare about a Muppet and like how he was. Essentially, it was like a Christmas Carol, but like how he was treating his children, and it was shown to him by Muppets. That's the vibe I got. Again, this is
Fair
from
enough.
someone that has never seen the show, but I basically like his daughter was like, I'm playing the sax, and he's like, you don't know how to do that. You'd have to learn how to do it. Blah blah blah. And like, I think that's maybe he doesn't have trust in the fact that his kid's talented. And then one of his kids was like a military commander, and he's like, yeah. Anyway,
That Muppet's name is Sweetums.
Thank you. Sweetums is a fantastic Muppet that's about a foot taller than me and just yacked out of his mind. Basically, J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
But the Muppets, yeah, there's lots of Muppets. It was crazy.
Oh my God, can we have a Muppet football draft? Anyway, keep going.
It was really crazy. Lots of kooky things happened. I kind of hated it all.
Yeah. That was a very random episode. To me, it showed off a bit of the cast more than him, and I think the other episode showed off a lot more of the cast than him. But was it Olivia on the little table as the little doctor back in time? Adorable, adorable. And Rudy being the nurse with the little green fro, adorable.
With nothing but sass. I loved it.
All the sass. And it was a good show. You know what? The show, I want to say CBS was looking, or NBC was looking at bankruptcy. And this show single-handedly kept them from going under.
I can see that. Like I said, it was not a show that I watched, but I am very familiar with it and understood the popularity of it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I remember how big he was.
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever look at Jello without thinking of him. I know that's dumb, but like
Jello, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
He was doing like car ads and motor oil and all kinds of shit.
I thought it was interesting. So and I don't have a whole lot to add for this episode. It was very typical late 80s, early 90s sitcom vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting because I don't think I ever listened to his stand-up either. I think the first stand-up I ever listened to was Eddie Murphy Raw. And it's a good start for, I think it was like 10. Fuck. That was a solid set. Anyways, I'm not familiar with his comedy, but I thought it was interesting. So Cleve had me watch darn it,
The Carmichael Show.
Thank you, The Carmichael Show. And it was
Season
addressing
2, Episode 2, Fallen Heroes.
and it was addressing essentially one of the main characters, the son, got tickets to Bill Cosby's stand-up and was trying to get his girlfriend to go, and she's like, "Fuck that, no." And
Understandable response.
yeah, she's like, after everything he's done, absolutely not. And then he's like, "Hey, mom, dad, you guys want to go with me?" And they were both like, "Yeah, of course we do." And then his girlfriend proceeded to then be like, "Are you sure?" Because like he did a lot of things. And then they started talking about all the things that Cosby did. And I thought it was interesting. He essentially in his comedy really kind of talked down about black youth.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't know if you know what's going on with George Lopez,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of like struck a little bit of that with me. Like it was interesting because you sell yourself as one thing, and then you really kind of kick the ladder from underneath you, and you're like,
It's like they almost get territorial.
yeah, and it's a shame because it benefited so many kids growing up, and to know that on the other end of it, like the Cosby Show benefited so many kids growing up, that on the other end of it, he's just kicking the ladder from underneath them.
Walk to the door and then shut it. Which is so wild because everything in the beginning of his career was about helping everyone.
Same with George
Like,
Lopez.
Yeah.
That's wild,
like
yeah.
on the point of like education and like teaching like history and the entire cast, and I think even the people behind the scenes, I think a lot of them were blacks. I found this out. He was on a show called I Spy, which was like a buddy cop show, and he paved the way for black stuntmen. Apparently, back then they would just take a white guy and paint him black, and he would step in and do the stunts for the people. And he was like, "That's not happening with me. We're going to have you can find someone black who can do the stunts for my character." And so it's fucking wild to me that these are the same people.
Right.
And you can't even say like, well, there's the early Cosby and then the late Cosby, kind of like you could maybe like Kanye or something, because they're intertwined the entire way. There's no separation. It's all one man. It's not like George Lopez, who was coming out to Lowrider and representing for all Latinos everywhere. It's so weird. It's so weird to think about, and I think that's why you try to say, can you separate the work from the person? And on this, I don't think I can. I can't separate, which is a shame because in the Carmichael Show at the end, they put on the Cosbys, and he's like, I just want to watch it one last time. And they're arguing about what episode to watch, and they're laughing over it. And it's because they can all remember such good times from this show that they'll never watch again, because we had to find a specific web website just to watch the episodes that we watched
Yeah.
because nobody's carrying it because nobody wants it. Nobody wants the heat, even if they don't care about what happened. Because NBC, I don't know if you knew he had before all these cases came up, NBC had signed a deal with him to give him another show. And they said at the time it was only about two or three women who had spoken out, and we heard that there were payouts. So you knew something happened, and you knew that more than likely he was guilty, but it was just a couple, and so you were good with it. Now that it's in the 50s, now you're like, oh well, hey, we can't give you a show. I'm sorry.
Is that how
Like
many? Is that how
you're
many
only
Ezra
going to do what's
Miller?
better for you,
Is that how many
huh?
Ezra Miller has to do before we?
I've decided with that show or with that movie that I will not see it in theaters. It'll come on HBO Max. I'll watch it then. I'll spoil it for myself. I'm not going to hold off. And that is my line that I have drawn for that. And I think that just to go on to terrible person, I think if WB said, hey, we're doing the movie, all right? It is what it is. It's coming out. After this movie, we're fucking done with him. I think that would make me feel so much better about it. But they're like, it's up in the air. Like, that's not what I want to hear from you when I'm looking at this man. I watched a whole video about his fucking timeline too, because I was talking to Jennifer about it.
Him
And
kidnapping people?
it's like, on this month, arrest over this. On this month, on next month, arrest over this. A week later, arrest for this. Next month, arrest for this. And just, I don't understand why we can't just kill him off. I went back in time so much, maybe my face change.
You know what? I'll forgive Grant Gustin for not being a top tier actor if it means I don't have to hear about Ezra Miller ever again.
Or like, I think about the people that get replaced all the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything you could do about this guy.
You tell me right now you guys weren't willing to give Terrence Howard
Turns out,
fucking yeah, sorry. You tell me you weren't willing to give Terrence Howard a little bit more money, you good with what's going on.
yeah, it's so much.
I know it's two different universes, by the way, guys. And please don't come after me.
No, put it in the comments. Michael Dunn didn't know the difference between Marvel and DC. But yeah, I wanted you to watch the Carmichael show. One, it's a good show. It's a really good show. If you get bored and you need something to put on, watch that show. But
In 2 decades, when I'm done with One Piece, I'll go ahead and jump.
it does a good job of there's this and there's that and there's arguments to both sides that make perfect sense. Mind you, the only argument you need on one side is he's raped 50. No, thank you. But the other side is like, there's a difference between the entertainment and this was my hero growing up, and I think he was like he's gonna die soon. This is his farewell tour. And I remember him taking that tour. I remember all these accusations going out and the nerve of you to go, I'm going on a comedy tour. The most narcissistic shit I've ever seen. But he's like, either he'll be dead or locked up. I need to go see him now because this might be my only opportunity to see him.
And I think that's why at the end of it, that's why I say, with as far as his contribution to the world, I think that the impact that it had already made on young individuals will stay there because I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's what put people to where they are now. Like that kind of role model put them on the trajectory that they're at now. But again, I think that that's dead. That stops there, which is unfortunate because it could have been something for generations to come.
Right.
We could
It
have
could have
had
been the staple.
reboots. We could have
He could,
had more shows.
if it was the Cosby that we thought we knew the whole way through, when he passed away, it would be one of the most devastating deaths
Yeah.
for entertainment. And now, I think, arguably, when it comes to just not American heroes, but heroes celebrity heroes, we'll say. I think it is the most devastating of careers to know that this is the bar that you set for yourself. We didn't put that on you.
Right.
You set this bar for yourself, and then here's where you actually were. It's wild. Did you see the motherfucker on the show? It's like Dr. Bill Cosby, EPD or something like
No,
that.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's like the lowest doctorate you can get, and then people were like, "I'm pretty sure that they just gave that to him."
Which is very
Also,
possible.
also in the show, he's an OBGYN,
Uh-huh.
and he works in his fucking basement. Like, it's a lot.
I don't think a lot of people will be sad when he dies, unfortunately.
Nope. Well, what's weird is, much like a previous president we had, there are people that are like marching with this man still.
You know
When
what?
he got released, there were people out there, "We love you, Cosby." I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know if you know that he was released, but yeah, he was released. Okay. Yeah, and like the show had, because you never watched the show had like little subtle things of like the black life and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Huxtable would be reading Ebony magazine. There would be posters of black celebrities on the walls and musicians. There would be famous black paintings on the walls in the hallway. And so it felt very uplifting to the people in the community. And then you got a little bit older and you started talking shit about how they just need to, like Kim Kardashian, they just need to stop being fucking lazy and work. And dads need to stay around and be dads. And I'm like, okay, I guess. Not talk about the oppression that's been said over years of laws that have been installed. But yeah, no, all right, sure.
Well, once you make it to the top, it's
Yeah.
hard to care anymore.
Eddie Murphy said that he called him and he was like, you can't be doing all this cussing and stuff. Eddie Murphy was like, fuck you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do what I want to. And
Oh.
that handle that's all exploding from the fucking Hannibal Buress joke. It's such a is I don't even know. I don't even know what to think. I know that I can't. This episode and this whole thing will be the last time I watch anything Cosby related. This will be it.
Yeah, normally we'd tell you where to find something if you wanted to watch it, but honestly, no, we're not going to. And we're not going to tell you about it.
I think what you said is probably accurate. Like I will remember the lessons that he wanted us to learn when we were little, and then burn it, burn the source material. Keep the lesson, burn the source.
Yeah.
Barbecue's also so good.
Fuck, man.
I'm not telling you where I got inspired from. The last barbecue.
I put something special in it to make.
Why are you making your kids horny?
I just don't. Yeah, Cleve, that's a great question. What about the children that were eating it? Not just like his kids, but like the children.
That's what made it weirder. It was weird that because you could have put fucking oyster juice in it. Who the fucking knows, right? But when you're like, oh, the kid's eating it, fuck that. Like that's what makes it, I think, over the top for me. That makes it weird. Like the catnip scene in fucking Cats.
We swore we'd never talk about cats.
But
again.
but then there were little kittens that were like, yeah, get some of this, kids. And he was so anti-drug and shit. It's just so dumb.
Anyway, guys, I'm glad
Hey,
we
can
can
you do
wrap
your
this
best?
up.
Since this is the last time we'll probably ever talk about
No,
Bill Cosby ever,
I
hopefully.
already said I wasn't going to do a Cosby impression.
Damn it. Pudding pop.
Theo in the pudding pop.
So terrible.
I know, it's so bad.
I can't wait till you hear it later.
Yeah, I'll delete it. Yeah, guys, I don't know. It was unfortunate. We talked about it because it made a huge impact on a lot of lives, but we couldn't talk about it without talking about how shitty the source is.
And it's important too. It's important to talk about stuff.
Accountability.
If you don't, then fucking it just disappears like it never fucking happened.
Hopefully you guys learned something about today. I would say you enjoyed this episode, but I didn't enjoy this episode, so
I learned too much today.
If you guys have any suggestions for things you'd like to hear from us in March and April and June and July and I don't know, the rest of the year, comment it down below. If you guys want to reach out to us, we're on all of social medias under Friendship Supreme, except for Twitter. It's just Friendship Supreme with no eyes, because all eyes should be on our YouTube channel or our Twitch channel, where we are constantly working to bring you guys content. If you guys have ideas, you guys want to see something, let us know. And I guarantee we'll probably do it, unless it's, toe content.
Ain't nobody got to know.
We look forward to our next episode with you guys. I've been Michael.
This is Steve.
Hey.
Yo, you know you got to put your school bag in the closet